One language, one world. If there was only one language in the world, would we be more united? Or would our differences lead to its destruction? You decide. No more confusion with translations. Ordering food in a restaurant abroad is always tricky. The menus are in a different language, and it can take quite a while to get what you want. And when the waiter asks you if everything is okay, you just nod because you don't understand the question. If everyone spoke the same language, this wouldn't happen anymore. We could order exactly what we wanted, and we wouldn't have to deal with bad translations or misunderstandings anymore. This would make traveling so much easier. No more struggling with phrases. No more using Google Translate. You could finally talk to that cute person from Argentina who you met on your trip and maybe even make a friend. And all of that without having to download a translation app. Finally, you understand each other perfectly. And then you realize he doesn't speak any English either. Well, actually, this situation is already a reality for some people. When someone moves to another country, they often learn the local language. So if everyone had to learn another language, we would probably end up speaking different languages anyway. But what if the world was a bit different? What if everyone spoke the same language? While most people wouldn't enjoy learning a new language, it might be necessary for the sake of the planet. It is said that currently there are 7,000 languages spoken around the globe. But according to experts, only 2,500 of them will survive by the end of the century. That means half of them will disappear within a few decades. And then there will be just a handful of dominant languages spoken around the world. Most likely, those will be English, Spanish, Mandarin, Hindi, and Arabic. However, this process will take a long time. For now, the number of languages spoken around the world is decreasing, but very slowly. Even though many languages are disappearing at the moment, we still have a lot of linguistic diversity. If this were to disappear, it would be a huge loss. Because if there was only one language in the world, a lot of interesting things would happen. Culture is more than just the way we speak. In fact, it's impossible to imagine a world where everyone speaks the same way. We all have different customs, traditions, values, art, music, and literature. All of this is part of our culture. And if there was only one language in the world, would our cultures disappear? Probably not completely, but parts of them would definitely be lost. Think about all the idioms and common phrases you use every day. You probably don't even think about how they reflect your culture. When you say piece of cake, you mean something is really easy. But this idiom reflects the culture of the US and the UK. In the Middle Ages, a pie was baked during church services, and it was so boring to listen to that the ushers started passing the pies around so that everyone could eat. When the pie was finished, the service was over. Therefore, the expression piece of cake became a common idiom, meaning something is really easy. If everyone in the world spoke the same language, these phrases wouldn't exist anymore. And with them, part of our culture would be lost forever. Not only that, but also the way we name things. Each language has its own names for objects and places. These names often reflect the history or appearance of the object. Take the word butterfly, for example, comes from the Old English word butterfleege, which literally means butterfly. It got this name because it was believed that butterflies tasted like butter. If everyone in the world spoke the same language, this name would probably change too. But that's not the worst thing that could happen. If we were all to speak the same language, we would probably lose a lot of important knowledge. Every language carries with it a lot of information about the culture it belongs to. That includes scientific terms and technical words. For example, the Inuit people in northern Canada have a total of 40 words for snow, because snow plays an important role in their lives. If there was only one language in the world, we would probably lose a lot of these words, which means we would also lose the knowledge they contain. But it's not just individual words that could be lost. Entire systems of writing could disappear. For example, Chinese characters are used to write not only Chinese, but also Japanese and Korean. Each character can have several readings and meanings. and even native speakers often struggle to read older texts. If there was only one language in the world, Chinese characters might be replaced by a different type of writing, or they might disappear altogether. This would mean that many historic texts would be impossible to read in the future, and a lot of knowledge would be lost forever. People around the world couldn't be more different. Would a global language unite us or cause chaos? If everyone spoke the same language, we could finally put aside our differences and start working together on important issues facing our planet, such as climate change or poverty. Currently, these problems are being dealt with by politicians and scientists. They often work hard and try to find good solutions, but sometimes it feels like they're not doing enough. It's partly because they come from different countries and have different priorities. If everyone spoke the same language, this problem could be solved easily. Of course, it would still be difficult to agree on certain things, but it would be a lot easier than it is now. A global language could bring people closer together and help solve the most important problems facing our world. But there's a chance that things could go in the opposite direction. Differences lead to conflict. Imagine you're in a heated debate. Maybe you're arguing about politics or religion. You try to make your point, but no matter what you say, they just don't get it. And then you realize that the reason for this is that you speak different languages. You've heard the saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me." But that's not true. Words can hurt a lot, especially when there is a language barrier. If two people speak different languages, it's much more likely that they will argue and fight. If everyone spoke the same language, we would probably see a lot less violence and aggression. Conflicts between individuals would be reduced, but that doesn't necessarily mean peace between nations. Conflicts between countries would still exist even if everyone spoke the same language. After all, there are many other reasons why countries go to war. For example, disputes over territory, resources, or ideology. So a global language wouldn't necessarily prevent conflicts between nations, but it might make it easier to resolve them. A single language could make the world a better place, but it's not a perfect solution. You might think that a global language would make the world a better place. But what if instead of making us more united, it led to even more division? What if the majority imposes their language on the minority? This is already happening to some extent. For example, English is often seen as the dominant language of the internet. Many people believe that English is taking over the world. They feel like they have to learn English to keep up with the times. And even though that might be true, it's not entirely accurate. English isn't necessarily replacing other languages. Instead, it's often being used alongside them. For example, many people in China speak both English and Mandarin. So even if there was only one official language in the world, people would probably continue to use their native language in private. And this creates a big problem. Imagine you're in a meeting. Everyone is speaking a global language, but you can't understand what they're saying. That's because they're using slang or making jokes that you don't understand. This could happen if everyone in the world spoke the same language. It would probably be used differently depending on where you are in the world. People would use different accents and dialects, which would make it difficult to understand each other. Imagine you're from the north of England and move to the south. You might struggle to understand what people are saying because they have a different accent. Something similar would happen if everyone spoke a global language, and this could lead to serious consequences. Imagine you're a doctor and your patient doesn't understand you because you have a different accent. Or you're a police officer trying to question a witness, but they don't understand what you're asking them. Because of these problems, it's unlikely that a global language would ever be truly global. Some people would always speak different dialects or accents, which would make it difficult to communicate. So even though a global language might sound like a great idea, it's probably not possible. It would require everyone in the world to agree on the same language, which is unlikely to ever happen. But it's not all bad news. Even though we will probably never speak the same language, we can still learn from each other. We can learn about other cultures and try to understand other points of view. We should try to learn a little bit of every language, because they all have something unique to teach us. So next time you meet a foreigner, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation. You might learn something new and make a friend along the way. Thanks for watching Parallelish. I'm Nova, your guide through the unknown. Want to explore more timelines? Tap the playlist above and keep diving into the what-ifs. Until next time, stay curious.